Did you listen to the U.S. Arts podcast today? No, I didn't listen to the U.S. Arts podcast today. I know that I follow U.S. Arc on TikTok and what was the other one? On Facebook is mostly where I see all that stuff. It's Hebrew, nice. Um, I follow their stuff on all sorts of other social medias, and I did see something about how the FWC was planning on basically making it illegal. You can't own reef geckos anymore. You can't breed them while designating them a threatened species, but not recognizing them as native to Florida. Because a lot of people still consider them to be non-native, like they say they came from somewhere else, but a lot of people, it's weird. It's a back and forth thing. They would be the only true native geckos that we have here in Florida, but some people don't consider them native. And so if that's the case, you're not allowed to have them in captivity or breed them, and then the next thing you know, they're the thing I said was like, well, you're not allowed to keep them, you're not allowed to breed them, so but we can't actually do anything because they're considered non-native. Yeah, exactly. It sounds confusing. So the reason is because if they're threatened and you can't keep them or breed them, but they're considered non-native, you can't do anything to protect the species, because if it was a native animal and it was threatened, like, you could actually go forward and try to protect some of the habitat. But if you designate them as non-native, there's nothing you can do about protecting the habitat. And you're not allowed to... So basically, you could wipe them out from Florida, from, construction, all that, and there's nothing that anyone could do about it. And that's the thing, is I think that might have to be, that possibly could be what's going on. But who knows, maybe there's some deeper diabolical reason behind it. But it is confusing. Why? What did they say, Nicole? Anything important? I was thinking about going to FWC meeting about it, but, FWC doesn't listen to anything anyway. They just kind of do their own thing. And it does suck. But they do that with a bunch of animals. Like, I'll give you an example, a little quick example of something that doesn't really make much sense. With the tegus are a really big one, because you were allowed to trap them and sell them out of state. And I personally knew people who had trapped thousands of them and got removed them. Well, then the state took it over. You aren't allowed to touch them. You have to have a certain purpose, but only the state is allowed to do anything with tegus, and they barely do anything. Like, they're terrible at it compared to what the people were doing, who were doing it as their full-time job. And they really, it's very frustrating, because if you watch it, it's like they're fighting against what's actually good for the environment. I think that's kind of the point, to be quite honest with you. But who knows? They did mention the guy was in FWC is making dumb choices. The 2 parts out was mostly introductions and stuff. Yeah, the whole freaking gecko thing. It's so dumb. I mean, it's a little thing. Like, if you don't really care that much about the ecosystem and all that, I can understand how it's not really that big of a deal. But I don't know. It's just another thing that. It's just another thing that they're doing to screw everything up, it feels like. But what I wanted to really talk about here was invasive species and what they are. Because I see all the time comments saying things like, humans are the most invasive species on the planet. And I hate this angle of this camera, but I don't really have anything else to put it on at the moment. Little thing is still a big thing when it comes to the environment and species habitat. Yeah, no, seriously, it is. But, basically, people comment all the time that humans are the most invasive species on the planet. And when it comes to the destruction that they have done, sure, I'll give you that. I will give you that. But when it comes to what actually constitutes as an invasive species, I'm not really buying it. The reason I say that, well, I can get into it a little bit. And I know this is, some people say I'm nitpicking. I get that. But I think it really does matter, to be quite honest. And the reason I think it does matter is because there are plenty of animals that are not supposed to be where they are that no one cares about, even if they are invasive. And we only pick and choose what we do care about. Obviously, cats are a big one. There's some other stuff, but the actual definition of invasive species, and I know I'm getting into definitions and it can get kind of cringy, but like, it's important to understand what the term actually means. It's a non-native or alien to an ecosystem under consideration, and a species whose introduction cause or is likely to cause economic harm, environmental harm, or harm to human health. Nitpick all you want. We didn't make sure definition facts are accurate. Yeah, I mean, I think so too. But those things, economic harm, environmental harm, or harm to human health, that's what an invasive species is. So if you do non-native species, a non-native species is an organism that does not occur naturally in an area, but are introduced as a result of deliberate or accidental human activities. So it's the same definition minus the harm aspect. All a non-native species is, or all an invasive species is a non-native species that causes some sort of harm. That's the only distinction between the two. But the other part of that is as a result of deliberate or accidental human activities. So, let's see, what's up? Are mongoose and honey badgers actually immune to snake venom? They're not immune to snake venom. Hey, George, by the way. They're not immune to snake venom, but their immune system does a very good job of fighting it off, and they can die from snake venom, but they're way better equipped to deal with snake bites. So something that would kill the average animal, they can just kind of take it and they're fine with it. At least from my understanding. So it's basically an immunity, but it's kind of not. It's it's gray area, of course, as everything seems to be gray area. Oops. Alright, fix my screen here. But there we go. Okay, so yeah, non-native, all it means, or all an invasive is a non-native animal that causes harm. So that's the only distinction that there is between native and non-native, or non-native and invasive species. But both aspects involve people. Both of them involve humans. Humans are in the definition of both of them. What I mean to say by this is that humans, by definition, cannot be an invasive species if we go by these definitions. The reason is because in order for something to become a non-native species, it has to be forcibly introduced, is what this is saying. Forcibly introduced. Humans are not forcibly introduced to places. You can make the argument about slave trade and all that. I get that. But those are still humans. Humans introducing other humans. The humans got there on their own. We're all humans, so the slave trade doesn't really count because, like, humans got there on their own. They didn't. It's if you really think about it, it's not the same thing. So, humans spreading around the world on their own is just an expansion of their range. That's all it is. We have the means and the ability to expand our range greater than what they are. And you might not like that, but that's just what it is. So, as much as we can get into the nitty-gritty and nitpick a lot of this, people are just going to say it anyway because, of course people are going to say it. But if you really get into it, that's just what it is. It's what it is. Humans are not an invasive species because we got there on our own. So, like, if an animal, like, we humans overpopulation, are we though? There's so much space. The issue that humans have is not that we're overpopulated, because there's plenty of places for humans to go that there are no humans at right now. The problem isn't the overpopulation. We can grow more food than we need. We grow so much food that it's in excess. We can do it. We have technology to do it. We have new means of production that you can put, food in a building, grow it like in a building straight up and growing up. Like, it's, the point is that because of our capability as humanity, the things that we've been able to do and the technology that we have come up with, we're not overpopulated. It's the expansion part. You got to build up rather than out. We have so many places that, like, the homes are just empty. Like, I know that's a very simplified way of looking at it, but the human population thing, we can sustain a lot more. Like, every single time that we're told that humanity's overpopulated, that number keeps on shifting whenever we get to that point because we don't really know. We can fit a lot more people. And besides, our birth rates all over the world are going down. It may seem like a lot right now, but it's not going to get much higher than it is right now if it's already plateaued. Over the next 30 years, we're going to have less people than we do now. The populations all over the world are dropping, including here in the United States. So to say that humans are overpopulated, I don't really see the numbers in that from everything I've seen. What is the birth rate? Let's see. Down? Yes, the populations are going down. Human birth rates worldwide. Birth rate of the world 2022 was 17.668 births per 1,000 people, a 1.15% decline from 2021. The birth rate for the world into 2021 was 17.873 births per 1,000 people, a decline of 1.13 decline from 2020. So every year it's been going down. Macro trends. Like, seriously, like this, I'm not just making this stuff up. The birth rate around the world is declining. Look at this. Every single year for the past few years now, and I'm sure you go back more, it's even, we're at, like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have billions of people, 1.15% decline in birth rate is a big deal. Now, that does not mean that I think that the world's going to end, because I don't. That's not what I mean by this. But for us to say that, and that's just, yeah, things are definitely on low. Globally, the fertility rate has fallen to below 2.5 children per woman. And that was in 2014. So, worldwide fertility has fallen from an average of 5 births per woman in 1950 to 2.3 births per woman in 2021. It's dropping. It's not increasing. So, no, we're not. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You talk about the love bug situation. I saw some love bugs today. I think it's possibly because it's been kind of dry over the past couple years, from my understanding. I thought maybe it had to do with like the amount of bugs splat on windshields, and I've seen some studies that show that might be possibly the reason, but from my understanding, at least with the love bugs, it's probably because it's been kind of dry. Seems crazy, but the way to prevent overpopulation is keep having kids and have them figure it out. That's what we've been doing since the 1800s, when they said we would be overpopulated. Exactly. I've seen 0 love bugs so far this year. Yeah, I mean, I saw a few today. As soon as I made the video on love bugs disappearing, I saw a few, not anywhere near the amount I thought. I've seen 0 too. I'm kind of worried about my squishy friend. Yeah, I'm not too far south of you, Chaz, but I've seen them. Yeah, it's in my yard today. But yeah, no worry about overpopulation. It takes a long time for these things to kind of like really show themselves. And I guarantee you in the next 10 to 15 years, they're going to be like, you need to have more kids because there's not enough kids. There's not enough people in the world. At 2, my girlfriend gave birth to twins a week. Well, congratulations. And my wife is pregnant, and we're going to have a baby in July. Heard something about pesticides. Well, that might be part of it. IDK, if that's the whole thing or not. I've heard the thing about the pesticides too. Possibly. But also, love bugs are non-native. They're from South America. So, like, if they did die out, I don't think many people would be too concerned. Although, it is a nice little boost in bugs. Besides annoyance to people, they don't really do anything. IDK math well, but 1% of a billion, like 10 million. I don't know if it's that much of the population. I believe it's just the amount of babies on average born to women. Like if you average everything out, I think it's 1% of that. Yeah. Love bugs are from South America. Bugs from South and Central America. Yeah, Yucatan, in Mexico. They reached Florida in 1949. By the late 1960s, love bugs. So, if they migrated, so they migrated on their own from what it looks like right there. They migrated naturally. Okay, so I would say that there's nothing wrong with them being here. They're part of us now. They're a natural part of the ecosystem. That's a great example right there of invasive versus non-native. The love bug. A fantastic example. So, basically, from what I was saying earlier, native versus non-native. Invasive versus non-native. The love bug is technically a non-native animal because it originated in the Yucatan and Central America, but it naturally got here on its own. So would it be considered non-native? Because people didn't bring it here. It just got here on its own. I would say that's just a migration. And it would be a native animal now. How long does it have to be in an area? How long does an animal have to be in an ecosystem until it's I am terrible at typing, considered native? Okay, is there a point to invasive? Okay, ResearchGate. Is there a point at which an invasive species becomes native? I'm writing on a report for some blah blah blah. Naturalization. The short answer is no. The long answer is as follows. Species naturally change their ranges over time, usually just by small amounts, invading areas contiguous with where they lived before. But sometimes a long distance dispersal, even across ocean gaps. Monkeys reach South America from Africa, presumably by rafting on trees washed out to sea, for example. Clearly, they are now native, and so will the descendants of the gray squirrels in Europe be after 30 million years. So, yes, at some point between 0 and 30 million years, where you draw the line is arbitrary. Is the dingo native to Australia after 4,000 years again? Or 4,000 years? No, but it is on its way, genetically and behaviorally distinct from the dogs that came with people, but still the same species. That is a good question. Who is that guy? I don't see his picture on here. So the answer is, I don't know. until when an invasive species can consider okay, except cookies. Until an invasive species is considered an invasive species, and when is it considered a native species? A species that is an integral part of the local flora fauna. On a human timescale or a geological timescale. On a human timescale, never. But time in years, it may be a century, probably a human timescale, or a millennium, or at least 50,000 years, or even a million years. Seems to me that simply a problem of some people allowing themselves to extend the label invasive species to include anything not transported directly or indirectly by humans, as term ordinarily indicates. Swimmers and flyers don't stay for long. Well, usually not. That's not necessarily true. I mean, it also depends on where it is. Like, the dodo came from regular pigeons. You know? The dodo came from regular pigeons and, evolved into its own separate thing. Let's see. Are you in there, Saget Master? 100. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a people are still talking about the same thing. Species introduced to new territory by humans, these are considered invasive essentially forever. So to answer your question, they don't. Species that enter a new territory via natural pathway like a land bridge or storm drift and destabilize the local ecosystem. There's no specific cutoff for these, as it is more about the context than anything else. Bison are considered native today, but paleontologically they were originally invasive. This is more about how they got to North America. Often, once the biosphere restabilizes the new species, they often stop being referred to invasive, but this is not a hard and fast rule. It could take millions of years. So, basically, at least from what I'm reading here, it's all arbitrary. All these animals are going to be considered invasive for as long as we know them. It's literally just a human arbitrary thing. In reality, none of this matters, and the animals that are there are going to be there long after we're gone, probably, and they're going to start new populations, which are going to branch off into new species that are only found in that area, and then they will become their own separate thing. I know someone who would argue humans hurting humans would count as invasive. How would you respond? Ignoring, bring unwilling people to new areas. Wait. I know someone who would argue humans hurting humans would count as invasive. Ignoring, bringing unwilling people to new areas. I mean, if it's people bringing other people to other areas, I would say that doesn't count. because they're people being brought to by other people. Like the people aspect of it is the important part, because they're humans and not something else. Like I wouldn't consider that invasive. That's we have different definitions of that. I think that would be considered, slavery. Also, if any of you guys in here are on Discord, that little logo that's right next to me, that's facing right there. If you take that and go to the Discord, we have fun little conversations in there. So, and also you could get on a call and talk to me on here if you wanted to, because I'm lonely.
Speaking of which,
ooh, that was scary. I didn't expect that.
no, I think you were pretty much hitting the nail on the head there with the invasive versus non-native thing. So, at the end of the day, I forget the exact word they used in that definition, but it's the re-equilibrating of the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And once that occurs, they officially lose their invasive status,
Yeah.
And again,
it's just
again, I would argue that like humans can speed up that process. A really good example is purple loosestrife. That's probably not an issue down south, but it's a really big invasive from Europe up in all the wetlands in the Northeast and across the Midwest.
Purple
it used to call loose, Loous. Loose. Shit. Anyway, but it was a really big problem for years. But they did these trials where they brought in insects that are adapted to that plant. So their whole life cycle revolves around this plant. There's nothing else. They have a very specific host. And they brought in a couple of them and they trialed them in a nature preserve. And they're really good at stopping them from doing that aggressive, invasive spreading. And now they've actually, the range hasn't shrunk back, but the population density has shrunk back significantly since like when I was a kid compared to now.
Yeah.
You can literally, whenever I find them, they're just completely defoliated because these beetles that they introduced, they made sure that they were doing the right thing. They made sure they wouldn't go over to any native species, but they're really effective at controlling the population.
They made sure of it, huh? That sounds like give it enough time, there's going to be a couple of them that start eating a native plant, and all of a sudden, boom, you got yourself a whole other issue like they did with the cane toads.
Well, I mean, we tried our best to learn from all those mistakes. This was like the 90s when we released the Beatles, so
yeah,
it's been a resounding success thus far. But, bringing it back to the point, that's like, we knew we weren't going to get rid of the purple loosestrife, but bringing that insect, it makes it act more like a native plant. So it's, it's on its way to being native.
So what does this plant do that's so devastating?
It just spreads. It with most of these invasive plants, they just choke out the other plants. So, the quality habitat in Northeast marshlands have like cattails in them. But if purple loosestrife takes over or Phragmites bulrush, those provide like less quality winter habitat for things that need reed beds to winter in, like lots of upland game birds, for example, winter in those reeds. And then, there's the purple loosestrife is really great for pollinators, but that's a certain window of time where it's useful to the pollinators. And, it might displace a native that has like a big food window for a bunch of stuff. In the fall, it has, a big pollinator window in the spring, maybe it's shelter in the winter, that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. It does make sense. Okay. Yeah, because it seems like a lot of the stuff is just purely arbitrary. Some of it. I mean, some of it's not. Obviously, there's plenty of non-native stuff, but it just depends. Like, okay, the Florida Fish and Game or Wildlife purposefully, like the state purposefully released, what are they called? Peacock bass down in South Florida because they're a game fish and it would attract more people to the area. They outcompete native fish like bass and bluegill, which are already having there's already a huge attempt to remove species of like non-native cichlids. Like, it's a huge thing. There's Oscars, jaguar cichlids, Mayan cichlids, so many different species that are out competing the native stuff, yet the state is like, no, we're gonna release this type because we want people to catch these types. It just doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, there's absolutely a right and a wrong way to do it. And when did they release the peacock bass?
That's a good question.
Like the 80s maybe or something? I don't know.
Like that.
Because the point, generally, I thought we had generally moved past that stuff.
1984.
By the late 20th century. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, you hear stories, it's like, well, in the 1890s, they released elk on this island because they wanted to shoot them. It's like, yeah, we try not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then Florida Wildlife Conservation's like, hold my beer.
Let's see. It said that they did it to combat other species, but there's plenty of native stuff that would combat that, like largemouth bass live there. Range habitat behavior, exclusively on fish. Cool. Sporting quality. One of the most popular sport fish in Southeast Florida canals, where it generates millions of hours of fishing pleasures for thousands of anglers who spend more than $8 million a year to catch them. Congratulations. Okay. That's on the FWC website. The only thing I can see here, it's from Florida Sportsman talking about how they introduced them to combat invasive species, such as the tilapia and Oscars. But, why would you introduce an invasive species like that when there's already stuff that does that? Like the largemouth bass, which is a native fish. I don't know. That doesn't make much sense to me, but they're cool, don't get me wrong. I like them. I don't have a problem with them. They can only survive down there. But that's the same sort of situation with a lot of those animals. They can only survive down there.
Right.
But it's funny. In class today, we get our weekly things that we have to do for school, and you have until Wednesday to complete certain discussions, and then you have until the end of the week and to finish the major assignment, and then you have to reply to a few of the other people's discussions, blah 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 blah. Well, we're doing a project on endemic species to certain areas of the United States. Mine is the Puerto Rican boa, endemic to Puerto Rico. And, you have to go into, of course, you have to talk about how climate change is affecting it. And, it also was talked about, how species become endemic and, why those animals are only found in those niches and blah, 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 blah. And it's funny because a lot of these animals that are only found in these particular places, some of them are very niche specific, and they can only survive because they are specialists in whatever zones that they're in, and that's why it's so dangerous for some. Oh, thanks for joining, Johns, by the way. But it's very dangerous for those animals to run into other animals that might outcompete them that are invasive, because those endemic species tend to be specialists in whatever area that they're in, whether it be a geological reason or geographical reason, or it be they just key in on a certain prey item or whatever it is. But with these island animals, the reason that they're endemic is because there's just nowhere else for them to go. And it's the same sort of thing, but they would probably do just fine on other places if they were brought to other places. So I don't know, it feels a little bit different than something that might be endemic to one region of a very large area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of tangentially related. It's how does the pet trade go into this? Is the Puerto Rican boa in the pet trade?
Yes, the Puerto Rican boa is in the pet trade.
Yeah, so you end up with, I mean, there are a lot of these animals where there's way bigger amounts in captivity than anything in the wild, you know?
Yeah, Nicole, I don't
Um,
know if there is an endemic species to Minnesota. A part of the reason I had stopped doing it was because a lot of those states didn't have endemic species. Let's see, soda endemic species. Plants, plants. Okay, there's a type of swan. The American mink. No. Okay, see, that's not. These aren't endemic. Um, I believe most of them are going to be plants. Let me see if there's animal species. Wolf, no. Lynx, no. Okay, that's not answering my question. So when it comes up like this, when I search this, it probably means usually there would be a list. Like if I said Florida endemic species, it'll give me a list. And I might have to search a little bit for some of the states. Okay, here we go. The scrub jay, the Florida mouse. That's not from Florida. That's a palm pit viper. Florida bonnethead bat. Florida sand skink. Like there are many species, and they just pop out at you. Only in Florida, endemic species like the scrub jay is one. And that's kind of the problem. Is that it's not that Minnesota sucks, even though it's cold. I'm sorry you live there, but it's probably that a lot of those states I couldn't do because there were no endemic species to those states. So, yeah, sorry.
yeah, it's interesting. The scrub jay, they
Oh,
used to lump that in with another jay species out west here. Maybe the Mexican jay, I can't remember. They used to all be called scrub jays. But
Really?
well, the point is, it's back to that North Florida sand area.
Yep.
So
I've seen
obviously
them.
Florida gets a lot of rain. It gets a lot of rain, but because the sand is so thick, and because sand, water runs straight through sand, it acts like it's arid, right?
Yes.
So even though it gets enough rainfall,
Mm-hmm.
so you have a habitat that's almost identical to what's found out west, 2,000 miles away.
Yes.
So, there's this bird that, possibly to different climatic conditions, it had wider range, and now it's restricted to this very pseudo-arid space surrounded by subtropical forests.
Now,
Neat.
the crazy thing about that, now that you bring that up, so I have seen these guys in multiple places. They're beautiful. They're very intelligent. They will follow you. They will watch you, and they live in these little family groups. And where you see one, you'll probably see a couple more. And they literally will sit on a tree right above you and just call, and they'll stare at you, and they're very friendly little birds. And as I said, they're beautiful. As you were talking about the sandhills, I live in the sandhills technically. So that's one thing that people forget when it comes to Florida is that the sandhill environments here are they're my favorite. The thing with them, with like herpers as an example, we will find some of the coolest stuff in the sandhills, but it's feast or famine. You either find awesome stuff or you find nothing at all, because it's so difficult for a lot of the animals to live there. And like the bodies, really most of the bodies of water that you get in the sandhills will be sinkholes that are filled in with water. And there are a lot of areas, like Ocala National Forest is a great example of that. There are little tiny lakes all throughout it, or there are what are they called? Prairies that will fill in with water, but that's about it. And sometimes you'll get a spring that comes up, and there will be like a little river that runs through. But for the most part,
Pothole Prairie. That's what you're thinking of.
What?
Pothole Prairie.
Yes, and I mean they're beautiful areas. A lot of bears, a lot of rattlesnakes. You'll get pine snakes, gopher tortoises. One of my favorite things that you find out in these areas, though, and this is a tree. It's called the turkey oak, and this is my absolute favorite tree because they only grow in very loose but highly drained soils, which is exactly what these are. I actually have the leaves like they looks just like this in my oh my gosh, my bearded dragon's cage. But they have these beautiful leaves on them. They grow all weird and craggly. Like how do I explain it? Craggly? That's not the right way to describe it. But most of the time they're super skinny like this, and then even the big ones like they're just like this right here. This is one of my favorite trees. But
Yeah, one of the neat things about turkey oaks is that the acorns are really, really low, and so most acorns you need to soak them in water like a bunch of times and change the water before you can eat them, or else they're super bitter. But turkey oaks are one of the best tasting acorns. You don't even need to soak them.
really, I have never had a turkey oak seed or acorn. I've never had acorns before.
I mean, I tried it, a couple times. They're not worth it. There's a reason. It's the natives didn't eat them if at all possible. But again, the turkey oak, chestnut oak, chinkapin oak, dwarf chinkapin oak, they're all closely related. They're all southern oaks.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew that their range wasn't too extensive. I just wasn't sure. Where have you eaten them before?
Oh, I have. I've just read about it. I haven't eaten them.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, I've eaten like white oaks, like swamp white oaks in central New York. But like I said, you have to soak them. So I got this foraging book, and this like professional forager guy, if you want to call him that, he recommended if you want to eat acorns, you put a sack of them in a mesh sack, and you store them in the top tank of your toilet.
The top tank of your toilet?
Yeah, because there's constantly water flushing through there, and you don't have to worry about it. You do it automatically. So otherwise you have to change out the water a bunch of times. So you put them in there for like 4 weeks, and then you can eat them.
Interesting. I mean, that's a way to do it, I guess.
So,
have you heard of the Florida sand skink?
Nah, dude, it's a sand skink, endemic to Florida, though. I did hear about that.
Dude, it literally their legs are so microscopic that they're basically useless, and it swims through the sand and it leaves these little trails. I don't know if you can see it on my screen or not, but yeah, they got these little nubby, like it's basically a legless lizard. Like it looks like a legless lizard that's micro. But yeah, again, another one of those endemics.
What are those salamanders that have the reduced legs? I forget what they're
Sirens?
Called. Like those things. Sirens, yeah. It's neat. How long do they get, the sand skinks? Are they tiny?
I think they're like 2 inches or something like that. 2 inches or so. Something like that. They're tiny. They're tiny. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys. Oh, sirens though, as you said, sirens get huge. Sirens get like 3 feet long.
Yeah. Have you seen hellbenders before?
I have not seen them, but I've been to a couple of the places where they do live, and that's something I would love to go and find. I have been
they're on my list.
Current River, Missouri is one place that I've been a few times, and they live in that river. But yeah, I mean, they're super cool. I mean, it's cool to have a giant salamander like they do in Japan or China, like kind of down. I know they don't get as big, but they're sick looking.
Yeah, those things. I mean, the Chinese and Japanese salamanders are on another level, dude.
Yes,
they're incredible.
Yes, they are. They are. Oh, Chaz, you're saying Sicilians. Sicilians, the ones we have here are not native. We don't have native ones, that is. We do have an invasive one. But yeah, those guys, amphibians that produce milk. New studies have shown that some species at least do, or a milk-like substance.
Nice.
Come on, guys.
Become a lizard ranger.
A lizard ranger?
A lizard ranger. It's your true calling.
No. Every single time I try to get into breeding animals, I just don't, because it's expensive. Honestly, it's super expensive. Every single time. I mean, I have animals. I have a few snakes, but I never get past that. That's
Well,
about
dude, when you start manufacturing lizard cheese, then the big bucks are going to come in
lizard cheese.
from the lizard milk. Are
No,
you not following this, dude?
Sicilians are amphibians.
Oh, whatever,
It would
dude.
be
Sicilian's a type of person.
No, that is spelt differently. Spelt differently. Sicilians are CAEC rather than CICI. I think. I think. I don't know. Sicily, is that what they're? Is that Italians? Is that what Sicilians are?
Yeah, that's the southern island on the Buddha, Italy, Sicily.
Gotcha.
Anyway, we're way off track now.
But yeah. The finish up what I was saying about the humans aren't an invasive species. What do you think about that? Do you think humans are an invasive species?
Literally, I mean, there's no way to say any of this shit without sounding corny, but like, humans are the only way out of this. Humans are the most incredible, beautiful thing. And obviously, like, humans suck and there's all sorts of shit, but like, if you like connecting with a human person to person, or like, seeing the wonder in a child's eyes, like, fuck you, humans are invasive species. Fuck you. Um, and
Yeah.
and not no, not only that. We hold the keys to the city. Number one, we aren't the ones who fucked up the environment. It was 100,000 years of humans before that. Your only job is to look for solutions, not complain about fucking problem, clown. So learn engineering or coding or something, and stop bitching if you're actually going to complain about things.
Now, I pretty much agree with what you're saying. Maybe not as, I don't even want to say as harshly, but I think that there are too many people who just hate humans for the fact that humans are humans. And it's kind of gross because, like, okay, if you feel that way, well, there's a bridge you could walk off of. Like, honestly, like, if humans are so, again, yeah, exactly what George is saying. Humans are the masters of adaptation because we can bend the environment to our will, basically, and nothing else can do that. So because of that, we are so incredible as a species, because that's the thing, is people forget that we're animals. They forget that. When you really take everything apart, we are animals. And the whole thing that animals try to do, or not even try to do, but the whole natural part of being an animal is you either survive or you die. You survive long enough to breed or you die. And humans have taken it to such an awesome level that we have been able to change the world around us to make it easier for us to survive, to the point where 40% of the United States is obese because we have too much calories, which is like the thing that every animal on the face of the earth struggles to obtain. And I know I'm ranting on this, but we have done such a good job that I feel like it is our responsibility to make sure that the earth continues somewhat as naturally as possible. It's never going to go back to the way it was with humans around. That doesn't mean I think humans are bad, though. You got to be smart about it and stop beating each other up for the bad things that have happened and grow as people, as the human race, and do better. Instead of just saying that we're so terrible because of the things we've done in our past. And as you said, I wasn't alive when all that stuff happened. All I know is that today I can try to make things better for the next generation. And what other creatures Whatever other animals can do that?
I think that's an absolutely perfect way to end it. Everyone plant a tree.
Yeah, that might be
Plant your
something.
native plants.
It won't, but it's for the earth and humanity to grow in a mutualistic union. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it too. And wait, are you? You said you're in. Oh, that's George. Said that he was here in London. I'm sorry, George. I will say this. I'm racist towards the Brits. No actual hate. No hate. But uh man. Dude, I tell you what. It's like every single time I figure stuff out, every single time I figure stuff out on here, the algorithm throws me a curveball. I'll tell you that much.
It's a struggle, dude. It's all
It's
Susan's fault.
Susan isn't even the one in charge anymore.
Fuck, who's the new CEO's name?
Um, I don't remember his name. He's an Indian guy. That's all I know. Um, God, what is his name? I try hard. How are you doing? I can't remember his name. Raja Mahan. That's who it is.
Okay, right on.
But
It's a much less common name. I mean, really the appeal was yelling at Susan was that it was like vague.
yeah,
So
the only
the thrill is gone.
exactly the only reason I know is because there's a couple podcasts that like part of it is you know stepping past the line of making sure you don't upset the God Wiki. And ever since the guy changed, like they literally had a guy write songs to step past like the YouTube guidelines, like that when they were right on the edge of it, they would play like a little sound bite, and they had to change it for Raju Mahan. And anyway, not that that matters too much, but yeah, bro, it's I don't know. I just I want to keep on doing these live streams like this. It's just it's that whole you got to do it like every day or like at least consistently, I should say. And it's even if it's only for a few hours, that's what I'm trying to do. And it's nice that I get you to come up here because you know I can talk for a while, but sometimes it gets I don't know how much I can talk at once.
Yeah, I'll try and stop in whatever I can, dude. And most days I'm free. Like I've got friends coming down, so we can do some sick hikes. Everyone in the Discord is going to get some great Discord pictures if you're
Yeah,
there.
people join the Discord if you're not in the Discord yet. Right next to my face is a link to the Discord. Join the Discord.
Oh, you should make a YouTube command.
A YouTube what?
Exclamation. You should make a YouTube command for chat. Exclamation point Discord. Anyway, yeah. So I probably won't be in the call the next couple days, but usually I'll be here, man.
Sounds good. Yeah, this weekend I got my son and we're going to be doing some stuff, so I don't know how much I'll be doing it then. But anyways, next course of conversation. Wait, what's his name? And who's the guy talking? What's his name in Discord? What do you mean? That's Saget Master. What are you talking about, Chaz? That's Mr. Saget himself. He's back from the dead.
Whatever happened to replaceability? The milkman, the paperboy, evening TV. Yes, I'm
All right,
saying you out.
you want to get even
Waiting
more.
just around the back.
You're getting cringe. You're getting cringe for sure.
Everywhere you look, and there's a place.
Oh,
Somebody who needs you.
what did you think about the releasing the bears into the Cascades?
Apparently, someone, I mean, fact check them. This is literally just a YouTube comment, but someone was saying they're in the Eastern Cascades, that like they've been there forever.
Really?
So, whatever, dude. Yeah, like Grizzly. Actually, Grizzlies are a tougher art. If you want my honest opinion, because Black bear, it is different. They do occupy different niches, and having the brown bears there actually puts the black bears in check. But they are like way more dangerous to humans objectively. And there are strongholds where black bears are fine. Black bears used to live here, by the way. So or brown bears, I'm sorry. Black bears live in the mountains still today, but there used to be brown bears, and the population density is really low.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really low there where they're releasing, but still, like, I don't know. Do you know more than I do about the specific niche differences between the two bears and how that would it make that much of a difference if there were brown bears?
To people it would. Grizzly.
No, I mean for the ecosystem though, strictly.
No, I don't. That's the thing is that I don't think. I think people are putting too much emphasis on, like, especially because of the whole Yellowstone thing. People are putting such an emphasis on top predators and the things that they do. And I am not against having top predators where they naturally belong. That's not my... I think it's fine to put some of these animals there. I don't really think it makes too much of a difference, especially if they were there in the past. I just think that people need to be realistic about it. And I don't think many people are. People think that, like, especially with wolves are romanticized. They fixed Yellowstone. But did they really? Because from everything that I've seen from some of the new studies is that the wolves weren't even taking out the elk. It was the mountain lions that had increased in population, and it was the brown bears that had increased in population that were taking out the elk, and also the elk moving to places where hunting was allowed. Because the thing is, when you look at Yellowstone, it's a national park. There's no hunting in a national park. So those animals are protected. So when the elk moved into, what is it? What is the next state over? Was it Minnesota? No, not Minnesota. Wyoming? Montana?
Wyoming or Montana.
One of those, whatever is next to. I don't remember the exact geography, but anyway,
Montana's north. It's right on the border.
So whatever the elk, they were moving to the other state or the other area where hunting was allowed for elk, and the hunters were hunting the same elk that came from Yellowstone, which reduced the populations. So you have the wolves being reintroduced on top of the fact that the cougar population was increasing, on top of the fact that the brown bear or grizzly bear population was increasing, all of that together, and it showed what the wolves were actually doing to the elk populations, and it wasn't even like a thing. They weren't doing anything to the elk population as a whole. Like, they weren't having a major impact. But the trophic cascade thing became a big deal because they were like, look at how the wolves affected it. And then everyone and their mother heard how the wolves changed the course of the river, and then in reality the river hasn't really rebounded that much at all. It had to do with the beaver population, and the wolves are eating the beavers. Like, it really didn't do as much as people thought it would. And I'm not saying that these big predators aren't valuable to the ecosystem, because they are. But to be quite honest, humans have taken over that role.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Going under your point, in national parks, yes, we need big predators, and we want big predators, because ideally in national parks, we'll have a self-sustaining ecosystem by itself where the predators and prey have reached a balance. Everywhere else, we can just shoot all the ungulates.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, more so, it's more of a problem because people are. We could do it better. There's a problem with a lot of people shooting too many bucks, even if they're spike horns, and they don't shoot does for any reason whatsoever. That's fading more, but there are like skewed ratios and stuff. But my point being, we can do a ton. We can, especially with careful management, just through shooting them and eating them. It's not a popular opinion, but those and, wild boars, perfect example. If an invasive species is edible, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so
And then,
no, go ahead.
but I mean, getting back to your point, top predators are important in some areas. We don't need to bring them back to every single place they used to be. And, for a future discussion, I'm going to try and look into it. You should also try and look into it. Like, how much of a difference would brown bears make in a place that already has a robust and stable black bear population?
I know that brown bears do more hunting, at least of larger game, than black bears do, because black bears mostly are foragers. They don't eat as much when it comes to large game, like ungulates or whatever you want to call them. But, I mean, they do, but they can't take down as many big animals as a brown bear can. They just can't. So
maybe it's particularly relevant to have brown bears again in areas where there are large elk and moose populations. Maybe in only deer areas, black bears are sufficient. Who knows?
Yeah, here, this is from that study I was talking about. Elk were the primary prey of apex predators in the region, particularly the gray wolf. However, contemporary analysis indicate that cougars and grizzly bears almost certainly preyed heavily on elk as well. Wolves and cougars were extirpated from Yellowstone by the early 1920s. The loss of regulating effects by apex predators on elk populations provides the single best explanation for the high densities of elk observed in 1930. Although other factors, including habitat conversion outside the park and movement of elk into the park in response to hunting pressure outside of its boundaries, may partially explain these high densities. So the elk were moving to those areas because of a bunch of reasons, but because there weren't as many big predators there. Hey Ron, how are you? But yeah, it's a lot more nuanced and complicated than people expect. And like in the 2010s, the population of cougars was going up as well. Like all of these animals, like it's a very complicated and nuanced situation, and just throwing big predators in there, it's not like bears. Brown bears are going to go extinct. It's not like wolves are going to go extinct. It's not like cougars are going to go extinct. Thank you so much, Untitled Goose. I appreciate Goose superiority. Well, thank you. It's not like these animals are going to go extinct because of around the world where these animals do live. There are conservation efforts all over the place. The fear and the worry that these top predators, or even a lot of the other animals in general, the fear that they're going to go extinct is basically gone now. In certain areas, they can be extirpated from that range, sure. But if you just leave populations of these animals alone, especially, we're seeing that with the mountain lions right now. They will move on their own. And what happens when they do move on their own? Just give me a guess on what happens when, say, a cougar winds up in Tennessee. Bro, thank you, Untitled Goose. I appreciate that very much. Well, Mr. Saget, let me tell me. What do you think happens when those animals do their own thing?
What do you mean? They're doing their own thing. That's the way it should be.
What happens?
Kill livestock.
That's not what I mean. What happens with the people when a mountain lion ends up in Tennessee?
I think a lot of people will be a lot more on board with it if everyone says, like, hey, they're coming back, rather than us releasing fucking 50 of them. You know, I think I
That
think
is that is the hope, but they get relocated oftentimes. They get taken away
sure.
because people are freaking out about it. A lot of those people don't want those animals there, even though that they naturally were there in the past. That's what I'm saying.
No,
What?
it's we need to change people's responses to these things. You know, instead of immediately having the urge to relocate them. You know, like something I talked about in one of the previous live streams is like they need to have a fear of humans. You know, one of these large animals doesn't have a fear of humans, that's dangerous and needs to be taken care of. But we can do things culturally. Whenever everyone encounters these things, to make them afraid of humans. Without hurting them. And I think that's really important.
I agree, but I don't think most people are going to be cool with that. Um,
And again, well, it's going to happen. Like eventually, in this hypothetical scenario, these mountain lions are going to keep increasing. Eventually, there's going to be nowhere to release it. Outside of Tennessee, it's going to be full of mountain lions
bro,
everywhere else. And there's going to be mountain lions everywhere in Tennessee.
Untitled Goose, you're fantastic. I cannot thank you enough. You have made my day. Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. I think that people like the idea of these animals being where they're supposed to be, and in the long run, they really don't want them in their backyard. Even though I don't think it's going to be a major issue, you're still inevitably going to run into issues where they eventually are. They eventually cause problems, and it's I guess that's just something we have to live with, though, because if you do want these animals to kind of go back to doing their natural thing, you're going to run into them.
Even if they don't move anywhere, they're going to humans moving into their space is going to cause issues. So, the animals are just doing their thing at the end of the day. And that's what I'm in favor of.
I agree. I got to give a honk honk to Mr. Untitled Goose. Honk honk. Sorry.
So the white-fronted goose, one of several goose species in America, is known as the cackling goose, because their calls, instead of being a single honk, or the laughing goose, it's high pitched and it's like
Really?
something like that.
Whoa.
My goose noise for Mr. Goose. He's an absolute legend.
Absolutely. I just found something really cool. A cougar sighting Tennessee map. Or not a map, but like documentation on cougar sightings. I mean, 2023 alone, there were a lot. Now, whether or not these are actually like, bro, honk, 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 honk. I'll keep on honking if you want me to. Jeez. I'll honk as much as you want me to.
Now, I'm trying to think of good goose facts. So there's different subspecies of the Canada goose in America. It's the Canada goose, not Canadian goose. Then there's one subspecies that is absolutely massive. They get up to like 13, 14 pounds, huge.
Yeah.
They live in the Midwest. They have a Midwestern flyway. And then there's really small. There's the lesser Canada goose, and there's a really small one, I think, along the Pacific flyway that's like, barely bigger than a duck. They're pretty
Really?
incredible birds.
Now,
And
sorry.
go ahead.
Well, I was about to say, I just saw this today. There were Neen geese, or the Neen goose from Hawaii. 4 of them have been found in California. Nene? Oh, Nene geese. They have been found in California. They flew over.
They were probably blown off by a storm. That happens sometimes with birds like that. They're really strong flyers. Even the nene, they don't migrate anymore. They're still strong flyers. So they get blown off course by a storm, and that happens. Like they get blown across the Atlantic, blown across the Pacific. I saw this one article recently where one petrel was tagged with a radio collar, and it was in Japan, and this giant typhoon came in, and they saw the tracking from the radio collar of this one bird, and really speculate whether it did it for fun, got caught up in it, unfortunately. But this petrel got shot up to like 50,000 feet. They're normally a seabird. Normally they stay like within 15 feet of the waves.
Really?
They're the petrels are the seabird, if you're imagining on planet Earth, the ones that are literally like on the water all the time. They sometimes they put their feet down on the water and actually forage that way. But this thing got shot up. It was something like 30,000 feet, 50,000 feet. You can Google it.
Really?
Over like the course of 2 days, took this colossal path, this giant corkscrew following the storm, like over top of all of Japan, and then it got placed back in the same spot it was.
And what was the name of it again?
It's some kind of petrel. Petrel, I think, sometimes.
Caught in storm. In Japan, you said?
I think so.
Bro! Wah, 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 wah. Well, thank you very much. Bread. Throwing that bread out. Bread. And because of you, I'm going to, if I can, I'll tell you what. First off, I'm going to make a video tomorrow about those nene geese. A video about that. So keep an eye out for that. Also, can you do like bread? We're gonna do like a bread, not emoji. What is it called? Where you could type it in the chat. I forgot. I mean, you could see bread right there, but I'll find one specifically of like a goose eating bread, and I'll make one goose eating bread so you guys can put that in there for Mr. Goose, an untitled goose over here. Thank you. Let's see. I'm trying to see this. I don't see anything about a petrel being caught up in a storm, but that's a really cool story. I mean, that's the thing is like
I'll find it.
Sorry.
Everyone in the Discord is going to get access to this article later on when I find it eventually.
Absolutely, go join the Discord if you haven't. You can. The link is right next to me. You go type that in and join the Discord. We would love to have you there. But yeah, no, I love reading stories. Like there's been a few of them recently with birds. I mean, we had the what are they called? Flamingos. Since the hurricane last year, we've had flamingos all over the place in Florida, and they were spotted all the way north of like North Carolina. Flamingos.
It's funny you bring that up. So flamingos used to live all along that Atlantic Gulf Coast, like up into Georgia, maybe even the Carolinas. And from Hurricane Ian, there was a population from the Caribbean that has blown up to the Space Coast. I don't know exactly where. My cousin told me. He's down there. Merrill Island or Mitchell Island, something like that.
Merritt Island?
But Merritt Island, there you go. Yeah. But so it appears the flamingos are staying there because it's really high quality habitat. It's just like the habitat they're used to. It's part of their historic range. Mm-hmm. They suspect that this group of flamingos is going to stay there permanently.
Really, that's interesting because here was Hurricane Idalia. Like the onion. We had that last year, and they blew them all over the place. And we have a bunch of them that still live here. They're in Clearwater and St. Pete. They're like a flock of them that fly around that area, and they're just here. Oh, and as far north as Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I mean, I'm sure they'll eventually make their way back down south a bit because I think they came from Cuba. Is what this population came from.
Yeah, Any birds that get blown up there, they'll come down, as soon as it gets cold in the fall.
There was another bird. It was spotted in the Keys. spotted in Florida Keys. That was to be there. Let me see, what bird is that, if it'll come up. Rare bird spotted by birders. No birds, garbage birds. I'll have to look it up. Some dude I've been following on TikTok recently, that has been doing like I don't know where he finds this. I mean, he's obviously in his bird arc, so he knows exactly where he's going to find his stuff. But he's where I see a lot of these. They're just random birds that are spotted by birders in like random places that they're not supposed to be. Like Britain has a lot of those. Like the UK.
Yeah, you can literally. All you can just Google Florida rare bird alert. I do it before I go hiking every weekend. I do Southeast Arizona rare bird alert.
Florida.
And these nerds on the Audubon Society, they tell you, and they're really good. It's like you have to watch this one from the roadside. It's on private property. They said you can't go on. Or it's like, these owners don't mind. You got to have permission. It's like, oh, they're over there on this pond or whatever. They're really cool about it.
Really? Bro. I would win against a flamingo. Tell him to post up. Dude, I'll tell any flamingo anytime. Honk, honk! Goose supremacy.
Flamingos honk too.
Well, not as good.
Like
not as good as a goose, okay? And yes, Alex, I'm not every night, but I'm gonna try to do one. At least during the weekdays, I'm gonna try to do one close to every evening. You said a goose or a flamingo honk?
Yeah, Google flamingo sounds.
Let's see. Flamingo noise. Let's see. Are you gonna make a noise or what? That one looks like it's wanting to yap. Come on, yap already.
You got the wrong video, dude. I think they like honk like crazy in big flocks sometimes.
Yeah, I guess so. Come on, do it. I've already watched enough. Let's go. Nothing? Okay, thank you. Here, flamingo sounds. Here's a short. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a normal dumb bird. That's what it sounds like. Let's see. Here, let's do a goose sound.
There's also trumpeter swans.
Trumpeter swans. Let's see.
I don't think there's a difference between geese and swans. Our name doesn't matter. They're all in the same genus. And the trumpeter swan, I believe, is the largest swan, heaviest swan. So that would make them the biggest goose. They are big goose.
Really? Let's try this. High quality. Look, geese sound in high quality. Let's hear this. Come on. Let's hear the symphony.
Let me play you the song of my people.
This is what bliss sounds like. There we go. That was music to my ears. Thank you. We'll do one more. We'll do another one after this to balance out. There we go. Gorgeous. That is what we're talking about. We'll do one more. One more to here's one, hissing and protecting its babies. This is what. Look at that. That is what those damn flamingos have to deal with. Okay? We got it now.
What's more American than hissing while protecting your young?
I don't think much of anything. Not hissing.
You're damn right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd be more I'm a goose. You got me. Oh my! But yeah, no, animals reaching places where you don't think they're supposed to be is a cool thing. But the Florida rare bird thing, or the rare bird thing, I didn't know this was a thing. Let's see. In Sarasota, we have a fulvous whistling duck.
Oh, sick.
Never heard of that.
So they're the whistling ducks. There's a couple species. I believe the black belly.
Oh.
Another, we keep finding them. That's another great example of a something that's spreading its range. They're going way northward. So the black belly was originally probably just in Florida, and now they're in like Virginia.
Really?
The unique thing about the whistling ducks, I don't know if they're in a different subgenus or whatever, but they perch in trees. They have longer legs and they've got like longer claws, and their webbed feet are a little bit more useful in perching.
Really? I've shot a few ducks before. I think one of them was a whistling duck. I don't know what kind.
Well, I would love to have shot a whistling duck back in my day, but I haven't.
See, a greater white-fronted goose.
That's the cackling geese, the laughing geese I was talking about.
Gotcha. One that I've
And
seen
then the
in
snow
the
goose,
invasive species that
the
can
snow
thrive on
goose.
its own. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say we talked about the snow goose before. They're the ones that are they're destroying their own habitat because they're so numerous because of human agriculture. They don't experience as much die-off during the migration south, so they're overpopulated.
Hey, Goose, thanks for stopping by. Keep an eye out for that video tomorrow. There will be a goose-themed video tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Untitled Goose.
Yes. Riley's Fish in Flag World. The people who comment that they don't actually think, they just say it to be edgy. Say what? You gotta let us know.
Invasive species.
Oh, gotcha. Man, if I could, think 2 more seconds before I open my mouth, that would probably help me out a little bit.
It wouldn't be on YouTube.
True. Egyptian geese. I have seen Egyptian geese before. Here in Florida.
Those are the ones featuring on the cool paintings, Egyptian paintings.
Yeah, they're pretty. Wood ducks, I've seen plenty of them. American widgeon.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Okay.
But not so much in a photograph, so probably. They've got a lot of like iridescence on them that's very slight. If you're talking the prettiest ducks, I mean, the king eider is a great one. Obviously, the wood duck, the mandarin duck. Northern pintails are very stately birds.
Oh, here, speaking of northern pintails.
Shockingly beautiful.
Oh, what? That is a pretty bird. What are you talking about?
Stately, right? Well, I mean, they can't compare to a wood duck or a mandarin duck, though. They're way more flair.
But as you said, they're very just elegant looking.
It's like a guy in a suit versus like one of those crazy Brazilian ladies with the giant dresses, different.
Green-winged teal.
Oh, they're the smallest. The cinnamon teal, which is slightly smaller and lives out west, is the fastest duck on Earth. Which, neat fact about that neat fact, that was the neat fact that spawned the Guinness Book of World Records.
What do you mean?
The executive of Guinness was talking to his hunting buddy about what the fastest duck was, and eventually that led to the Guinness Book of World Records.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, northern shoveler, that's another really good duck. They're cool because they have a flattened bill, and they have these specialized hairs, like bristles on the outer edge of their bill that acts like baleen for a baleen whale.
That is really cool.
Yeah, so they take up a bunch of mud, and then they squeeze the mud through their shovel bill, and then they eat all the invertebrates.
That is.
They look like a mallard with an extra chromosome. If I'm being.
I don't know
Am I
how.
wrong?
What?
Am I wrong though? It's pretty
Which
accurate.
one? Let me look that particular one. You said it was called a what?
A northern shoveler.
Northern shoveler. I probably spelled that wrong. Let's see. Oh, oh, oh. Okay. I mean, it's definitely looking like there's something going on there. It's a cool bird. One thing I love seeing this kind of stuff. Wait, let's see what they say. What kind of goose are you? You're an untitled goose. I don't know the
I think
species.
so I haven't looked closely, but it looks like some kind of domesticated goose, like some kind of variety. I'm not sure. But, like I said, I haven't looked close.
I am not sure either. I wouldn't know. I need to get better with birds. Mangrove cuckoo. I didn't realize we had these here in Florida. I don't know why. I think I am going to dip my toe into the birder world, which would. Oh, what goose am I? Thank you, sir. I'm going to. If you're a white goose, I. Are there just plain white geese? White. I'm gonna cheat. Let's see. The domestic goose, snow goose, the white Chinese
Ross's
goose.
goose.
Huh?
Dude, Ross's goose.
Ross's goose?
It
Yeah,
used to be a subspecies of snow goose, I think.
Ross's. Rose. Oh, Ross's. Okay.
They're just really small.
Are you a domestic goose? That's going to be my final answer is a domestic goose. But yeah, I think I might get into the maybe not straight up birding. Oh, purple. I've seen a lot of these birds, but like just seeing some of the rare stuff because I mean, birders seem to be a lot more willing to give up their spots than herpers are for sure.
For sure.
Herpers are notorious for not caring at all.
And one of the nice things about birds, you do not need to know any scientific names because the common name scheming system is so robust and ubiquitous. You can go anywhere and use the common name and everyone will know what you're talking about. And that's not true for, a million other animals.
So, speaking of which, something that happened not too long ago was that there were talks, and I think it probably will still happen. I haven't heard about it in a little bit. There were people who were wanting to change the names of a lot of birds because they were named after quote-unquote problematic people. Like the Cooper's hawk as an example.
Yeah, so I guess it's like one or two that are problematic, but the Audubon Society's stance was actually, which I kind of agree with. They decided like, hey, none of these birds named after people are descriptive in any way. So like every other bird, it's like a purple martin. It's like a tree swallow. It's a bank swallow. All of these things tell you something about the bird. So even though like they took their complaints, it was, in my opinion, I don't know, it was almost like a jujitsu move. And it's like, oh, you want to lib us? It's like, well, we're gonna turn it into science. So I'm kind of for it. I'm against it because I'm gonna have to relearn a shitload of names because there's so many birds that are just, it's like Grace's warbler. I see those all the time here. Lucy's warbler. Those are in the mesquite constantly. Like you can't spit without hitting a Lucy's warbler. But those are all going to get named mesquite warbler. There's nothing called a mesquite warbler. That would be an objectively better name. So I'm for it in the end. But yeah, I mean when I first saw the headline, I was like raging too.
Yeah, this is from the American Ornithological Society. 70 through 80 bird species in the U.S. and Canada It says there is power in a name, and some English bird names have associations with the past that continue to be exclusionary and harmful today. We need a much more inclusive and engaging scientific process that focuses attention on the unique features and beauties of birds themselves. So, everyone who loves and cares about birds should be able to enjoy and study them freely, and birds need our help more than ever. So, at least from this point of view, it's to me it's cringe, because they're saying that it's harmful to the people today who want to look at a bird and call it by a name of somebody who was. I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, as you also said, like, we know them as certain things today. It's just like changing the name of the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland Guardians. Are you really doing anything? Are you really actually helping anything?
We got to change the name from the Commanders, though. The Commanders are fucking... That's a disgrace. The football team was better than the Commanders.
What's the Commanders?
So maybe the Washington football team.
Oh,
their new name
that
is the
whole
Washington
thing.
Commanders. So well, they got a new owner, though. So they got a new owner, so maybe they're going to change the name. I'm holding out hope. Apparently you just watch baseball. That's what I'm getting from this.
I pretty much just watch baseball. I know I'm like that. And speaking of which, let's see. Am I going to be crying here in a second because my team is losing, or am I going to be very happy because they have been sucking? Oh, they're losing 6-1. Ha! Yeah, it's just one of those seasons where it doesn't seem like I'm going to be very happy for the rest of it, unfortunately. But
hey, I mean, at least there aren't like 200 games you have to watch them suck for. Oh, wait.
162. Thank you.
Shot clock, though. What do you think? What do you think about the shot clock, dude, or the pitch clock, whatever the fuck they call it?
I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
A live game since?
Yeah. I went to like 8 or 9 last year, something like that. Yeah, the Guardians are doing pretty good this year. I've been to a few games with the pitch clock. I don't mind it. The game goes by quicker, and it doesn't really seem like much is going on. And there were times where it was awesome when there was a lot of suspense and like built up in time and all that. But at the same time, there were plenty of instances where I'm like, okay, let's get this going. This is kind of ridiculous. Why is this taking so long? So, like, I understand why they did it. I'm not a hater of it. The new rules have been okay. They're not the best, they're not the worst. Now what they really need to do is work on the umps, because the umps suck. All of them. Especially Angel Hernandez.
Would you rather have them replaced with just the, the automatic thing? The strike box?
No, not the automatic. There's something they were doing in the minors where they had, like, it quickly challenge a strike by, like, tapping on your head or something, and, like, they would have, like, a robot say yes or no whether it was a strike or not, and, like, you get, like, one of those an inning, or one of those, I don't remember the exact amount, but yeah, no,
like tennis.
I'm
tennis
fine with
the
that.
Exact same thing.
Yeah, it would probably be good, because there's plenty of times where that is really backfired, but at the same time, it's part of the game, so it's like, there's sometimes where it benefits you, sometimes where it doesn't, so I don't know. I think overall it would benefit, but... Oh, and by the way, Ron, I might possibly go to a Rays Mets game this weekend. I don't know 100%, but I might. They're doing their new City Connect jersey, and I haven't been to a game this season, so I might do that, but...